workshops, consulted and coached individuals across the United States, as well as globally in the Asia Pacific region, the Middle East, and Europe, with extensive business expertise spanning 8 different industries, as well as education, the federal government, and not-for-profit. Nadine brings a powerful mix of strategy, empathy, and real-world insights to her client engagements. Her passion is to add value, whether she is coaching or consulting. Throughout her career, Dr. Kouba has worked with leaders at all levels. Her experience includes executive and individual contributor coaching, intact leadership team development, succession planning, and leadership program development and facilitation. Based on her over 30 years of business experience, Nadine brings a thoughtful approach to her coaching. She helps the client surface their goals and then work on an action plan that achieves their desired results. Solving a business problem, handling a people issue, developing personal leadership, executive presence, transitioning into a new role, or planning their career. Nadine earned a PhD in education, higher education leadership from St. Louis University, and is also a graduate of the University of Texas at Dallas Executive and Professional Coaching Program. She is certified by the International Coach Federation as a professional certified coach. In addition, she is internationally a best-selling author and featured speaker. For your learning and growth today, I present Dr. Nadine Kouba.
So the topic today is giving effective feedback. And I'm curious, as an entrepreneur, who do you find yourself giving feedback to or wanting to give feedback to?
Myself.
Okay, yourself. That's
Spirit.
family. Family, yeah. Feedback doesn't just kind of happen in business, but definitely can be with our family and our other personal relationships. Now, when you give feedback, what are you hoping to get?
Constructive criticism.
Agreement.
Agreement. Most of us are probably looking for that other person to change their behavior, right? Keep doing what you're doing, good things, or this isn't quite what we need. What can we do differently? Most of us love getting positive feedback. Kind of glow a little bit when you get it. However, many of us are not so fond of getting constructive feedback. And sometimes it takes a little while to let that emotion pass, but then it soaks in and we kind of wonder, do I need to do something differently? So good old Bill Gates says, we all need people who give us feedback. That's how we improve. And that's one of the approaches I would urge you to think about with feedback, is what we're looking at is for improvement. Sustained good things or a change that will help somebody to improve. However, we sometimes don't look at feedback as being a comfortable thing to give. One of the things I would ask you to be aware of is that giving good, effective feedback is actually a leadership skill. It supports constructive behavior change. If you are working in innovation, then it really supports that culture of innovation. People need feedback in order to keep innovating, making the changes. Are things working? Are they not? The other thing is research is showing that 72% of employees value their managers providing them feedback. However, only 26% report getting effective feedback. And for those of you who are working with the various generations, that's true for all generations, but you really have to pay attention to Gen Z because they are truly looking for that kind of feedback and support in their growth and development. So the question is then, how do we give feedback? What do we want to do? And one of the things we can see is there is a 3-step method that you can use in order to give very effective feedback. But I'm going to talk about it in a sense of positiveness. is that we want to frame it in that way because most of us can view giving feedback as a potential conflict situation. And one of the personality profiles that I use actually shows that 50% of the population steps back from giving feedback because they view it as a conflict situation. They could hurt somebody's feelings. So they will step back. They're not going to give feedback. The other 50% looks at it more as a win-win. If I give feedback, then we're going to either keep that good positive change that's happened, or we may get the positive change we are desiring. So for you, here's a very simple method you can use. The first thing is you want to identify the situation. What is it you saw, or were you there together with that other person? You want to be specific about that, when and where, what happened. The second thing is we want to address the behavior that was observed. And you want to be specific about that behavior you observed, but you want to not pull in any kind of personality traits. Only neutral. What was the behavior that I saw? Then you want to look at the impact. What is it you felt, or what was a result of that behavior? So what's your reaction, or what's your evaluation of that situation or your emotional response? And you definitely want to use I statements when you give that. So that sounds nifty. Let me give you an example specifically with positive feedback. And here's an example. I might be giving this feedback to a colleague that I've been working with. During our call today, when I shared the challenge my business is facing, I noticed you were focused on my every word and you asked questions. Impact. I felt supported and empowered, and my mind opened up to new solutions. If I said that to you, if you were my business colleague, what would you do the next time? More of that exact thing, right? Because you know what to do. One of the most damning things that can happen in business is you give a presentation or you have a meeting with a client and your colleague says to you, great job. What are you going to repeat the next time? I don't know. It's kind of like spitting in the wind. You know, am I going to do the same thing? Am I not? So that's one of the reasons we want to be really specific about what is the behavior and then what was the impact. Now that's great, sounds good, can give positive feedback. Now we want to talk about the flip side, that developmental feedback that we might be giving. And the method adds a step. We do the same thing with identifying the situation. I feel people taking pictures of the slides, so I'm stepping aside so somebody can get a photo. Again, you're going to talk about what you saw, what happened when you were together. You want to be specific about the what and the when. Then you want to identify that behavior specifically. What is it that you saw? What happened? Again, avoiding personality traits. We don't want to be like some politicians calling people fat or eyes. Remember the schoolyard when we beat people up? That doesn't really help when you're giving somebody feedback, as you mentioned that one of those comments. So, and then we want to talk about the impact again for how you felt, what was the result of behavior using I statements. Here's the add-on when you are giving developmental feedback. You want to look for a response from that other person. So it's how are they responding to the feedback that you're giving them, inquiring about how does that land for you? How did you see that situation? If they're nodding their head when you're talking to them, like they identified it, they agree with that feedback you're giving them, then you can actually ask a question moving forward, which could be something like, so if this happened again, what would you do differently to get a different impression? So we've got this methodology. You notice I use the term developmental. non-critical feedback. And I'm doing that because 50% of us don't like conflict. So if I can reframe it in a positive way, that this is developmental feedback, not critical feedback, I'm not thinking about hurting the other person's feelings. Instead, I'm thinking about how could this be helpful? And it's also not pointing at somebody and going, you screwed up, when you talk to the client that way. Not real effective. They're gonna go on defensive immediately. So again, what's the situation? What's the behavior? The impact, and then the response. And I have an example for you using this methodology. This is the developmental feedback with that response included. This morning, when the client was presenting to us their current needs, I noticed you were on your phone when they were talking. I felt concerned that the client was being disrespected and it sent the wrong message about our values. Before I jump to conclusions, can you share with me your perspective on what happened? One of my favorite statements from a boss, he'd always say, help me understand. So that could also be a question about, help me understand what was happening for you at that time. Yeah, it's really powerful, whether it's positive or negative, it's to say, help me understand. Because now I'm not pointing a finger at you and blaming you, instead I'm opening a conversation. And we're colleagues in this and we're talking about this. Well, this all sounds great. I just gave you a methodology, right? 3 steps you can use. But it's time for you to see if you can use them. Can you take this away and apply it? So what I'm going to ask you to do is to think about, is there someone you need to give positive feedback to? Or is there someone that you need to give some developmental feedback to? Situation, behavior, impact. Take a few moments, 3 minutes or so, and we're not probably going to have time to pair up and practice, but take a few moments so that when you leave here, you can actually go do that when you go back to your work situation. And there are pads of paper there, so I'm going to go back a slide. And if you're doing positive, you don't have to use a response, but take a few minutes and see if you can jot something down and actually make use of this time and be very positive when you go back to your work site or wherever and give that feedback.
You can't pretend to.
Being spotted? No response.
No.
Yes.
So that would be developmental feedback. You're lucky to change. What is it?
It's like round to it, so that you can get around the big things because yeah, I did the first time. That's all. Yeah. Look at one. It's all that's one.
Like, she doesn't come to the kitchen, she also doesn't break and stuff, and turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
Give her time. And people. And she also pictures.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to interrupt you and just ask, how was that for you? How was it to use those 3 steps?
Smooth.
Smooth? Was it difficult?
Actually, because, oh, sorry, go.
You go.
Good that you pointed out developmental feedback, like it helps me because I have other entrepreneurs that use my kitchen, and sometimes the things that they do, I'm like sitting there like looking at them, I wanna just cock my head and be like, what don't you understand about this? But now I understand.
Your mother doesn't work here, clean up after yourself.
Oh, it's more than that, but yes, so it helps me to understand that, maybe they just need a little, they're not developmentally there, maybe they just need a little, me to ask them, the question that you said about, help me understand, like, why have you not been here? What are you doing to improve, to get more business, blah, blah.
Great. Darlene, you were gonna make a comment.
No, my apologies, I should raise my hand. First of all, the whole pre-frame of the safe space that you created was really cool. Like when I was, this excited to come here. She asked for that. But seriously.
Let's feedback me.
The whole, I noticed, like when we take the ice skating, that felt so comfortable because I could own, like I noticed this. That doesn't mean everybody did, right? And that was a very safe statement for me. Like the whole conflict thing was like 100% taken out of that.
Okay, great. So thinking developmental helped you to take out the conflict and being, oh my God, I'm gonna hurt somebody's feelings. Is that? Anybody else?
You need an SPIR to create a framework and it took some of the emotion out of it. It makes it more factual, a talk track that you can stick to and you don't get down a rabbit hole of emotions.
Great, great. Any questions before we wrap about using this methodology?
First of all, I just want to acknowledge it's a great presentation, Nadine. And one of the things that struck me early on in your presentation, when you quoted those statistics, and you said 72% of the employees would like, and your slide said critical feedback, and I thought, I don't think so. And then you went on to clarify the distinction between critical and developmental. And so I'm just kind of curious about that dichotomy between what that data said and what you're saying, which I think is.
That was the researchers' terminology.
Yeah.
Because they used critical meaning developmental, like what feedback are they getting? Thank you for catching that, but yeah, it is semantics at that point.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, should you need to contact me, we have my information up there. I'd be delighted to talk to you. And thank you for your attention and participation this evening.